What is good, YouTube? This is Asteroid. So I'm going to review the second album by Young Buck, and this project is called Buck the World. This came out in the spring of 2007 and was basically his follow-up to his Straight Outta Cashville album, which did pretty well. So basically, Young Buck was always kind of the Southern Fried G Unit member. Like Straight Outta Cashville from that project, that kind of had more cuts like Shawty Wanna Ride and Let Me In that were kind of more southern compared. I mean, that album was at least still kind of more in the G Unit fold, but it was also kind of southern fried in a lot of ways. It had a lot of kind of summery type vibes about it. It had stuff from like I want to say David Banner and Lil Jon and those type people. There were good songs on there like Stomp, which was kind of a T.I. and Ludacris beef, and just overall stuff like that. It was a pretty festive time. Definitely recommend it if you haven't tried it yet. But this album is a pretty like Young Buck went from just like a pretty solid kind of Southern G Unit member to like a full blown. This, in my opinion, is definitely a rather heralded. It's definitely going to get a high score. I'll go ahead and say this is going to get a 10 out of 10. But just the fact that this project is like a staple of like late 2000s rap music. I really think it's that good. I was just thoroughly surprised. Originally, when I was going to review this project, I thought I was going to give it like a 8.5, 9 out of 10, something like that. But I didn't realize I was going to like this many songs upon listening to the whole thing. So I just kind of look after the conduct behind it. I've connected with the album in the past, but I really just thought this was an above average and just overall thorough kind of project as a whole. And Young Buck has a number of producers on here. Jazzy Faye is on here. Dr. Dre is on here. Eminem produces a beat. Lil Jon produces a beat. It has an ass load of great hooks. Pimp C does an excellent hook. Life Jennings does an excellent hook. Snoop Dogg does an excellent hook. Chester Bennington from Linkin Park does an excellent hook. I mean, there's just Cocaine does an excellent hook. There's just a bunch of excellent hooks on here. Really kind of a hooky album. About the only real weakness I feel like this album has is it just did not deliver on the lead single. Like, I feel like I Know You Want Me was kind of a great kind of promotional and primer single, but unfortunately, Buck the World was a little bit clumsy in its execution. Didn't really chart as heavily as it needed to, and I just feel like that was about the only thing this album really lacked. Had some good singles, but it just didn't have that home run kind of single that could have gotten Young Buck the true, like, powerhouse promotion that he needed. Like, he just didn't quite. This was supposed to be the album where Young Buck started to cross over into 50 Cent territory, where he was going to be kind of like the next big thing, as big as Jeezy and T.I. and like Lil Wayne and some of them. But the prospect about it is just the fact that it just didn't quite get the single. But yeah, well, I forgot what I was going to say, but the concept behind it is just the fact that this is an excellent album. And it's just kind of the concept that, it was kind of starting to showcase Young Buck out of the fold, and he was going to really kind of be the next to blow up in G Unit. But I just don't know why this album got jet lagged as much as it did, because this album, oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. This album really did not sell terribly well. I don't even think it went gold, which means it didn't even sell 500,000 copies. 50 Cent was kind of upset about that around this time because Curtis really struggled to go platinum, and like Lloyd Banks's album, I think, barely went gold or didn't even go gold either. So G Unit was really suffering through problems around this time, and Young Buck, because he was a Southern rapper, was supposed to be the revival of like G Unit after all those bad albums, or not bad, but lagging albums from 2006. But then this year in 2007, Young Buck and 50 Cent underperformed as well. So it's kind of folks just got tired of the G Unit fold, despite the fact that Young Buck is really hardly G Unit affiliated. Lloyd Banks isn't on here at all. Tony Ayo's not on here at all. 50 Cent is on here twice, but these are not the full blown attention grabbing songs. I think that's just kind of the concept. Young Buck really delivers on this front on his own, and it just kind of feels like Young Buck is just a Southern rapper in general. He's just like a secondary or mild primary highlight, kind of similar to the popular ones around this time, like Lil Wayne, Jeezy, UGK, Chamillionaire, some of those type people, T.I., and those type folks, and some of that fold. I mean, I really feel like people didn't realize that Young Buck was kind of a larger staple in this fold than what had seemed. I would definitely say he was pretty much damn near a primary rapper in the Dirty South hip hop around this time. There just were not many albums in like 2006, 2007, 2008 that were better than this. So that's just kind of the thing. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about the singles now. The first single is called I Know You Want Me. And this single is kind of just like a promo, kind of bubbler of a single. Just kind of like a nice kind of spring kind of energy. This kind of, this bubbling kind of energy, that type stuff. Not quite as ferocious as Get Buck and other songs on here, but this is kind of like a nice little mid flirt, kind of getting the energy started, but it's just not popped off the full way. I feel like maybe the energy in terms of the song is maybe like a 6.5 or a 7 out of 10. I feel like the energy for this song is like a 6.5 or 7 out of 10. Now that's not the quality of this song, but it's definitely like the energy for it. It's just kind of almost like a mellow, kind of breezy kind of song, but it works. It just works as like a nice flirtatious kind of club cut. That's just kind of, I like the kind of like decent kind of rickety kind of production on there, but it's just kind of like a nice kind of chill, kind of breezy kind of song in a lot of ways. This works in that sort of sense. This one really just feels like a promotional single, but it was the first single for it. It just came out like well before this album was even on its promotional run, and even before I think I want to say it had an album title. So that's just kind of the thing about it, but it just works. It's a nice summer tune. It's nice kind of swimming pool kind of energy about it, this would have to say. And this kind of works as that. Get Buck is the second single, and this was supposed to be the lead single. This is where the Buck the World promotional cycle kind of started. Like originally around this time, Young Buck got into a beef with the Game. He was about to really pop off with the Game, and the Game was kind of talking shit about G Unit around the time. He really didn't like the rest of the G Unit members. He was doing the GU Not campaign, and Young Buck, him being the cleanup guy, was going to answer like that and defend G Unit and that sort of thing. So they almost got into a beef around the time when this song kind of came out. Ultimately, they patched things up later, but at least in early 2007, they about had a beef with each other. But yeah, to talk about like Get Buck and stuff, I mean, I like this song. It's definitely like a pretty rowdy song, but I think that's really what it was aiming for. It's just kind of like a rowdy, dog face kind of club cut that's just really about kind of getting just kind of stupid on the song and just getting kind of rowdy as fuck and raucous as fuck and that sort of stuff. And I just would have to say I like that quality in Polo the Don, who was popular around this time with the stuff he did with Rich Boy and Fergie and some of them. It definitely works, but I almost feel like it's rowdy to a point of being clumsy. I just feel like the sort of execution behind this, it just somehow didn't have like the pure refinement of like a single that needed to be around this time. I just feel like maybe it was just a tad sloppy for what probably needed to be on the radio. I just feel like the singles he dropped on Straight Outta Cashville were better. Like I just feel like Let Me In was a neater song, and also Shawty Wanna Ride, produced by Lil Jon, that was like a really clever and just powerfully executed song. But because this was the lead single, I think this had a lot to do with why Buck the World kind of undersold. It's a great song, but I would have preferred it to have been like a promotional single. I think there are so many better songs on Buck the World that would have connected with people a lot better. I just think the reason why possibly he picked Get Buck was just because it had the word Buck in there, and it would have promoted the Buck the World album. So it just kind of made sense to kind of go with that. But it just, I feel like this is not anywhere close to the best song on the Buck the World album. It definitely, he should have picked a different one. I probably would have picked Pocket Full of Paper with Young Jeezy, just because Jeezy was hella hot at the time. He was definitely red hot at the time, and that's just a infectiously better beat. And there's some other ones on here that I'll get to. I guess I can list some of them. Like I feel like Push 'Em Back would have been a better choice. I feel like Slow You Roll with Chester Bennington, even though that's kind of dark lyrics, would have been a better choice. I feel like Cleanup Man might have been able to, but pretty much Pocket Full of Paper or Push 'Em Back would have been better choices for like the lead single of this album. Those just had better production, just overall better manic energy. But this is a good song. It's definitely a thumper, definitely a trunk rattler and that type of stuff. Definitely gets some energy going, and it's just like I said, a very rowdy kind of almost to the point of being sloppy kind of song. But I do kind of feel like it has enough energy towards it. But I just feel like the beat is somewhat kind of tunnel vision and somewhat almost being clumsy. But that's just kind of the thing. The third single is You Ain't Going Nowhere, and this was produced by Dr. Dre. This has a real kind of breezy beat. This is an excellent produced song. Dr. Dre was on some classic shit back in 2007. I definitely would have liked Dr. Dre to have had more beats throughout some of these folks in 2007, because this is just an example of true refinement. And it just works to me. It feels like a song that just is kind of at a bar or something like that. This really comes off as like a mellow, just kind of, it's a flirtatious song. This is definitely a song for the ladies, and I just would have to say, is this kind of a nice relationship kind of song about young Buck, having women addicted to him and that type of stuff, saying you ain't going nowhere, and just trying to prove why you should stick around and that type of stuff. Just kind of has that sort of energy towards it, and yeah, just kind of, I mean, this is definitely kind of an outgoing song, but this is kind of mellow. This, I mean, 2 out of 3 of the singles on this album are kind of mellow on here. I feel like this is a good one. I'm surprised that this one didn't chart higher, but I do feel like it just was. I really think like folks were looking for something that could have really had like the true execution of a single. It just went from kind of overly rowdy on Get Buck to kind of mellow and breezy on You Ain't Going Nowhere. I do feel like this should have been a single, but probably the fourth single, something like that. This is kind of the stuff where you would get like the Let's Get Away by T.I. I feel like that's the same single where Let's Get Away was like the fourth single from trap music. I think that probably would have worked better as like a fourth single, but it just needed like a club cut. I really feel like it just needed something that could have really worked higher. I don't know. I mean, the problem with it was is I just could not figure out why G-Unit was flopping as hard as they were. Because it's like I feel like maybe it just had to do a single execution, and maybe it was just people were just being flippant. But that's just kind of the concept. I mean, all of these singles are good, but I just feel like the arrangement for what was going to connect with society just was not seeing eye to eye in terms of that context. And as a result, this album is a classic in my opinion, but it kind of went a lot on deaf ears, which is really too bad. So, but these are good songs. So I'm gonna go ahead and recommend the songs out of 18, because it says that there's 17 songs on here, but actually Lose My Mind, produced by Eminem, is kind of like a fusion song where after that song ends, it leads into funeral music. It leads into funeral music, which is kind of a Cameron diss, because 50 Cent was in a beef with Cameron in early 2007. So out of 18 songs, there were really only 2 songs I didn't enjoy and don't recommend to you. So that's why this record gets a 10. But the only 2 songs I don't recommend would just be Say It to My Face and then Funeral Music by 50 Cent. So the reason why I didn't like those 2 songs is I really just dislike the beat entirely of Say It to My Face. It's probably one of the beats on the lower rung on this project. Like most of this album is produced quite excellently. There's just plenty of good stuff on here. Young Buck has pretty top-notch production points on here, but this is just an example of one I didn't connect with. I really felt like I think this song Say It to My Face was just heading for like a more kind of roughneck kind of proposal about it, just a little bit more gritty a song, but I kind of feel like the production just didn't line up with a more attractive kind of feel towards it. Like it probably served its purpose, but it just was not an attractive listen. And then Funeral Music, which was a Cameron diss and it was pretty decent. I just kind of didn't connect as much with the production towards it. I think maybe it just had to do with the production. I would have expected like a 50 Cent diss, just because when he dropped like Piggy Bank in that one, that was a real example of a nice slinky one. And 50 Cent, some of his disses towards Ja Rule and some of that type of stuff like Wanksta. This was an example of one where I guess 50 Cent's grip on diss songs kind of loosened a bit, because I do feel like it's quality, but it's just not quite as like superb as like he normally is in that field. It just was not quite as, I mean, the concept of a secret 50 Cent song that's not even on his album is a good thing, but it just didn't quite have the execution as well as it needed to. This is definitely kind of one of the more lukewarm kind of 50 Cent disses, despite the fact that it's not a horrible song, but I just am not going to even recommend it as an almost song. But so some of the immediate highlights on here, like I said, I feel like one of the best songs on this whole album is Pocket Full of Paper. This has just like a Pocket Full of Paper has like a glaring kind of pulsating kind of beat. Really, I felt like Lil Jon produced this song, but it was actually DJ Toomp, and DJ Toomp was on fire around this time with the stuff he did with Jeezy and T.I. But this is definitely an example. This is a blistering, pounding kind of beat, definitely one to smoke to and that type stuff. Haters is a nice ruminating song. There's actually two ruminating songs on here. It's just, I love how breezy that Haters is. It's just kind of a real kind of sultry, kind of hazy evening kind of song that's just like fuck the haters and that type stuff. It's really kind of comes off as just kind of like Haters is a good rebuttal song. I just like how, despite the fact that Young Buck has all these haters, he's just so calm and collected on the song and really disses them back, and Cocaine really works on the beat as well. Lose My Mind is a great ruminating song. I like that Young Buck kind of shrieks on this song. Eminem produced this song extremely well. This is just surprising. I haven't heard this song very much back in the day, but I do listen. I do like the fact that it just is a crazy kind of song, and it's definitely a kind of song that I would like Young Buck to do more. Because the thing about it was Eminem kind of met Young Buck halfway, where it was kind of like, I mean, Eminem would fit perfectly on this song, but it's just kind of interesting to get Young Buck on a kind of more ruminating and kind of self-induced and kind of more like introspective kind of feeling, just like a crazy sense, because Young Buck is such a loose cannon in the first place. So Eminem really channeled Young Buck in a great way to kind of get him into letting loose some of that energy and that sort of feel. So it's just kind of crazy to kind of get that. If anything, I would have liked the third verse on this song, and then Eminem could have been on there. It definitely would have worked extremely well. That is an example. That's a shining song from Young Buck. I just really liked how manic and crazy he got. Four Kings is a nice, real kind of summary kind of song. I would have liked another song like this. Pimp C, Young Jeezy, and T.I. are on here also. Pimp C just does the hook. But this is just an example of some good summer energy, kind of similar to I Know You Want Me. These are just breezy kind of songs, kind of infectious in a lot of ways. It's make you want to go outside and sip a lemonade with some vodka in it and like the hot weather and that type stuff. Just really being able to say this has the nice kind of energy towards it. Puff Puff Pass is a real kind of smooth as fuck, kind of breezy smoke song. This is another one where Young Buck is kind of calm and collected and just knocks the song out of the park. This definitely works. Kaimani Marley is on here and he does a great job. It's just interesting, kind of get that one. Perfect little smoking song. This is the kind of energy that is just excellent for it. This is just an easy. I definitely recommend smoking to this song. You would be floating on cloud nine smoking to this. This is that breezy of it. This real kind of powerful emphasis. Money Good is a great club song. This is not as good as Pocket Full of Paper, but definitely kind of like a slinky. This one's more of a vanilla club cut, but I still recommend it. And I would say that Cleanup Man's a vanilla nightclub cut. This is definitely, I like the piano keys on here, or the bell kind of keys on here, the xylophone keys, whatever that is. But I definitely like as far as that kind of goes. These are just some nice ones, and Young Buck just cleans up the song. These are just good album cuts. So he just does the process of filling out an album. Slow Your Roll. Slow Your Roll with Chester Bennington has a great vocals from Chester Bennington and Linkin Park. Just continues to prove why he's such an excellent singer and that type stuff. And then this really is kind of like a haunting kind of club song. Definitely like a real Young Buck, and his lyrics really makes this song about like some of the hard times that people he's seen, known, and family members that just kind of have some hardships, and it just really has haunting kind of lyrics, but it still works as like a club song in a lot of sense. Just being able to hear this, it is kind of a more bone chilling kind of song, but it just has that kind of powerful energy. Hold On with 50 Cent is kind of like a fancy blue blood kind of song. This is kind of definitely one that I like just in terms of that context of more gratuitous stepping out and more dressed to impress kind of vibes. 50 Cent and Young Buck really handled this song pretty well, despite the fact that the song lyrics are not so much sophisticated, but it just has a more kind of glossy and almost East Coast kind of sound to it. It's just real brassy in the production, but it's just very sophisticated also. But the lyrics are about just beefs, kind of similar to the stuff on Haters and Say It to My Face and that type stuff. But this is, in my opinion, like a fancy song for maybe New York stepping out or city stepping out and stuff. Bust Your Head that's another excellent club song. I don't think this could have been a single just because of the violent lyrics, but I do think this is a pretty rowdy. This just showcases Young Buck's powder keg kind of energy extremely well. This is where Young Buck starts getting real crazy, and his ad libs are pretty crazy on here. Definitely like this. Definitely like the beat on here. And Pushing Back is one of the ones that just has a real kind of manic kind of energy. This is one of the craziest songs on here. This definitely should have been the first song you hear because it just captivates you right upon first listen. This great intro, this great excellent song, crazy energy, real kind of crunk kind of song almost. Just makes you want to get crunk and that type of stuff and go crazy and that sort of thing. I Ain't Fucking With You has like a crazy hook by Snoop Dogg. It's just an excellent overall. I didn't realize that Snoop Dogg could do hooks this good. But this is just a really infectious one. It's just about snitching and that type of stuff. But this is just another one for like the clubs. Snoop Dogg and Trick Daddy do some real good verses about snitching and that type of stuff, and Young Buck does too. I just would have to say it just kind of works extremely well. So I mean, Young Buck just packs this album to the gills full of club cuts on here, like Pocket Full of Paper, Money Good, Clean Up Man, Bust Your Head, Push 'Em Back, Get Buck, Slow Your Roll. Some of those are just some excellent club cuts to step out to. But yeah, the title track "Buck the World" is kind of a personal song, but it works. This is kind of the type of stuff that Tupac would do. It's kind of real introspective, just kind of where you're kind of jaded against the world and kind of pissed off with how things have been going. This kind of feels more like a mixtape cut, but I liked it. Life Jennings really delivers on here. Just makes it kind of real, kind of emphatic and like kind of relatable. You just have empathy for the song because you just have empathy for how the shit's kind of going on and how terrible things have kind of been around the time, and just the relatable kind of after effects of like life kind of serving you bad hands and that type of stuff. So it's just kind of one of those. I like that Young Buck pulled this card out of his stock just to kind of be able to do it. It's just kind of an interesting one. It's very much similar to the stuff that Tupac would kind of do and those type rappers who have those kind of introspective kind of songs. So it's just a lot of good stuff on here. If I missed any other song, just understand that most of this album is good. It has its kind of smoking moments, club moments, ladies moments, summer moments. There's so many good moments on here. There's just plenty of things to kind of have. It's just a very kind of album for just recreational and just overall. This is an example of a classic rap album. There's just nothing else to say about it in that sort of like relative context. It just happens to really just hit the thing on all cylinders. That's this kind of thing. Like I said, the only real thing it really needed was just a more powerful lead single. It just didn't have that, and as a result, this album underperformed, and it just didn't get the attention it needed to. It just really kind of underperformed, and it's just underrated overall. There's too many good things about this project. I mean, how many rappers have collaborated with Chester Bennington from Linkin Park apart from Jay Z? That's really a crime because he's such a good vocalist. Life Jennings is great on here. 50 Cent does some good stuff. Cocaine doesn't get messed with enough. Kai Monty Marley, this is about the only song I know him on. Pimp C has a great hook. Jazzy Faye does some great beats and stuff. Lil Jon does some great beats. DJ Toomp gives Young Buck an excellent beat. Dr. Dre is on here. Eminem has an excellent beat on here. Justice League does some good stuff. There's some rowdy crunk type numbers. So there's just plenty of craziness. So yeah, this album gets a 10 out of 10. The social score I'm going to go ahead and give a 10 out of 10 also because this is an album that can connect with. I would almost give this social score a 9.5 just because it doesn't have a powerful lead single, but you will find something on this project, guarantee. If you like rap music and you like crunk and dirty South hip hop, there's going to be something that's just going to connect overall. There's just plenty of stuff, too many good things to talk about. I mean, maybe you could be jaded and say that it's just hardcore hip hop, but that's about the only real thing that this album lacks. Is just something that could cross over to commercial and also kind of blue collar markets. But I do feel like You Ain't Going Nowhere is at least a mild attempt at being blue collar, but it just was not put on the emphasis very heavily. I just think that that's kind of the thing about it. But apart from that, apart from just like that blue collar song or a more powerful lead single, this album has it. So I'm just going to give the social score a 10. In terms of the future, Young Buck is not with G Unit, and he's kind of had a beef with 50 Cent across the years. But I don't know if he's going to put out albums. But Young Buck has been active, and we're going to get to some more of some of these projects and such.